Hello, everybody, and welcome to AMA Lunchtime Learning Series. This is a webinar series that is done by me, Maria Suleiman, Managing Director of AMA Consulting. Welcome. If this is your first time joining us for this webinar series, thank you so much for joining us. We are glad that you are with us today, and hopefully you will have some good takeaways from the webinars. Just wanted to do a quick tech check. Please type yes in the questions box or chat box if you can see my screen and if you can hear me. We are going to be starting the webinar in exactly 1 minute. Just wanted to do a quick tech check. Type yes if you can see my screen and if you can hear me. Yes, okay, I got the yes. All right. So we are going to go ahead and get started. We have quite a few people joining us here today for the webinar, but we're going to go ahead and get started to make sure that we cover everything that we need to cover in today's presentation. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Maria Suleiman. I am the Managing Director of AMA Consulting. We are a federal contracting professional services firm. I'll go into a little bit more detail about what we do, but I did want to share a snippet of my background with you. My bio is on the screen, but my background, by trade, I'm an organizational development consultant and executive coach. I work with primarily government leaders, mid to senior level leaders, to help them um, develop the skills and change behaviors to make them successful in their management and leadership roles. Um, I design training programs. I coach individually managers and leaders, and I also do team coaching. As I said, I've been in the industry about 16 years now. I started from a small management consulting firm and then went to work for the government. I worked for FEMA, also worked for the U.S. Small Business Administration, and that's where I really got into federal contracting and small business programs. So you would find that a lot of our lunchtime learning topics also include small business topics or small business contracting topics, because I do have that background as well. If you are joining us from the SBDCs or the PTACs, welcome. I also teach classes for them regarding federal contracting and small business procurements. Okay, so our webinar topics cover um, a range of areas to include business skills. Some people call them soft skills, but I like to call them business skills. Essentially, the skills that you need to succeed and thrive in the workplace. Whether you're part of the workforce, you're an emerging, a new manager, or an emerging leader, or a very senior leader. Okay, so that's my background. And then a little bit about AMA Consulting, what we do. We offer services in three primary areas. Organizational development, which is internal within an organization. Primarily our clients are federal agencies. So we do strategy, articulation, and execution. Offices wanting to define their strategic objectives over a 3-year period or a 5-year period. High specialty workforce development. That is really about providing workforce initiatives that helps to strengthen the workforce in new emerging areas like cybersecurity or very high specialty areas like in the biotech or research and development areas where a talent is a very scarce resource. We do a ton of trainings. So again, business skills trainings as well as professional trainings. We are a PMI REP education provider. And so we do project management trainings, grants trainings, acquisition trainings. Our second line of services is business program support. Primarily what we do in this line of service is business process improvement, really moving towards robotics and using robotic process automation to save the government money and to increase efficiencies within program operations. And then on the IT side, we provide assistive technology support, helping federal agencies meet the Section 508 and 504 compliance standards. We do project management and, of course, IT training. Okay, so that's AMA in a snapshot. And the reason that we do these webinars is because we're a learning and development organization. We provide a ton of trainings. So it was feedback from some of the people that we've trained in the federal space saying, hey, you guys do excellent training programs, but what happens after you leave? Some of the material, we go back to our regular daily duties, and some of the material kind of just goes awash. And so we started doing this webinar series a year ago now on a variety of topics, like a quick bite-sized refresh and discussion, okay, on a variety of topics. If you have any questions, please save them till the end. We have a very short time frame. But I do want to hear from you at the end. We're going to be a little bit more interactive. So I just implore you to be patient as we go through the material. And then we'll have a more lively discussion at the end. All right, so building a high-performing team. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And as if you're a manager or a leader, I encourage you to get familiar with a lot of books. Right off the back, I'm going to give you a resource here. And this is Douglas Smith's book, The Wisdom of Teams. Creating high performance organization. Definitely get this book. If you are developing a team, or you're part of a team, or you're leading a team, and you're looking to increase the performance or the effectiveness of your team. The other resource I'm going to give you, and a lot of the content that we talk about here today is going to be based off of Patrick Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Phenomenal book. I mean, I use the book and the resources with the book for a lot of the teaming engagements that we have with our federal clients. So to do offsites, to do team coaching, to do team building training programs. So Douglas Smith, Katzenberg, Back, and Douglas, they define a team as a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed in a common purpose, performance goals, and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. This is the best description of a team that I've found. A lot of times people think a team is just a group of people working together, or and just if you work for a large bureaucracy like the federal government, or even a large organization, a lot of times teams are formed very informally, or what I like to say, teams are formed by accident. I mean, a bunch of people, well, somebody has a great idea and they're like, oh, do you want to work with me on that? Do you want to work? So there was really no intention about the team formation. And so this definition kind of encompasses what a true team is about. So a lot of times you may just be a colleague with someone, not necessarily a team member, and you need to know the distinction. And so I think this definition helps with that. So a small number of people, that's key. Teams are usually small. I would say from 3 to 12 people at the most. Once you go over 12, then that's kind of like I would call that a different term other than a team. Maybe then you're an office or a division. But a team is usually a small number of people, complementary skills, not identical, keyword, complementary, which means team members don't have the exact same skill set. They have complementary skill sets. Okay, so that's another thing to keep in mind. They're united on a common purpose, so they're working towards a particular goal, a set of goals, performance goals. So they actually have a mission. They have something to accomplish, and they hold themselves accountable. So that's the definition that I like to go with for a team. Now, before I go into the next slide, I'd like to just take a quick poll. And for this conversation today, what I really want to delve in is, how do you develop your team capabilities? So we're not going to be talking about structures of a team. There's the 5 stages, forming, storming, norming, and all of that. We're not going to talk about that for today's conversation. We're going to delve right into, you already have a team, you're functioning as a team. How do you develop that team's capability to be able to get results and win? That's going to be the focus of today's conversation. So I'm going to start the poll, and the poll is very simple. It's just basically saying, what is the cause of dysfunction in your team? Or, I mean, I think I kind of phrased it. I've launched the poll. So please vote. Is distributing, right, poll is in progress right now. Please vote. We have 0% voted. Everybody please get involved. I'd like to get data on this. And the no common purpose, I'm seeing that coming up. And the reason why I'm setting this poll is I really want to hone in on what are the difficulties that you're having with your team, or what are the issues? What are you trying to address? What are you trying to grow in your team? So we have a couple more people. If we can get more people, we have 67%. I'm going to leave it open for another few seconds. But think about that, infighting of team members, incompetence, lack of skill, lack of knowledge, or no common purpose. So this is interesting. I'm going to close the poll right now, but I'm getting 100%. 100% of those who voted in the poll say no common purpose is the primary issue or situation that they're having with their team. That is really, really interesting. I'm going to share so you can see the poll results. So hopefully everyone can see the poll results. Everybody didn't vote, but 67% is good enough. But that's interesting. So no common purpose is the majority of is where a lot of the issues are coming from. And the follow-up question that I have to that, and you don't have to answer that, we can discuss it when we get to questions, is who is responsible for setting the purpose of the team? Who is responsible for setting that? Is it a team leader? Is it the members of the team? Is it the outside organization or whoever the mandate that the team has, whoever that they get reported to? Are they responsible for setting the purpose of the team? So think about that, okay? But this answer also shows that a lot of the issues that we have in teams, in organizations, doesn't necessarily have to do with skill or knowledge. It's more behavioral. Okay, so it's more either a lack of communication, lack of accountability, and all of this is related to purpose. And we're going to go into more detail about that. But that tells you that it's more about behavior more so than skill or innate personalities or abilities. So it's less about that and more about behavior. So that's where we're going to focus. So I am going to delve right into some of the nuggets that I have in terms of helping you develop your team. And some of the things that you need to watch out for that creates dysfunction in a team and kind of impedes the progress of a team. And I'm going to start kind of backwards and start from what most people think is the issue, right, with teams. So the first one is inattention to results. Again, a team is formed because there are specific things that a team needs to accomplish. There are specific results that a team needs to accomplish. Just think about a football team, for example. Everybody is playing football in the NFL to get to the Super Bowl. That's the goal. Everybody wants to win the Super Bowl. None of the teams are playing just for playing sake. Now there's the entertainment piece that comes with it. There's the merchandising that comes with it. But the main purpose and the main goal is to win the Super Bowl. And so this is something that a lot of teams struggle with, is not paying attention to the results. And a lot of times you will see this show up within the team individuals when they are more concerned about their status and their ego, more so than the team's results. So this will be likened to a basketball player who doesn't care whether the team won as long as their stats were good. They had enough points and assists and rebounds. And so they'll be unhappy if the team wins and their stats are not good. So that's an analogy that I like to use for this particular one. So inattention to results, again, all of these are behavioral. Again, status and ego, that's all about individuals, having to want to shine. It's the sense of, okay, I am more important than the overall goal, or I'm more important than the team. I bring something to the table that's more important. So for example, if you have a team of, say, a small organization, and you have marketing, you have the CFO, you have business development, you have a customer services manager. Every department feels like what their charge or what they're doing is more important. And so if you lose sight of the results, which is to grow the company and make the company successful, and you start to go back and forth about who's more important as a result of ego and status, that can affect the team's goal. And that can also lead to the team not being able to achieve a common purpose, because there are conflicting and competing agendas. Okay, so that's the first dysfunction that I wanted to mention and discuss and think about how that plays out in your team. And The second one is avoidance of accountability. Okay. And the way that shows up is low standards. So a lot of times you will find in teams, everybody maybe has a faint idea of what each member of the team is responsible for doing. Or if your work requires another team member to complete a step before you can complete your step, you may be more acquainted with what that person's responsibility is. But where if there's no accountability, and that person is not meeting their standards or not meeting the deadline or not following through on what they're supposed to do, then that can throw the entire team into disarray. Okay, and that can affect the team's function, and it will not be a high performing team. Okay, so in your team, what is the metric that you measure your outputs with? What are the standards that you have developed, depending on whatever you do? So, for example, we were working with a client within the DC government, and they are responsible for funding a lot of the outreach that goes into disease and cancer, chronic disease and cancer support for the district residents. And so a big part of their matrix is how many residents they're really targeting with this information for preventative health, as opposed to having to have a higher mortality rate for cancers and chronic disease, because residents in the district are not getting access to the health care for preventative health. And so one of the things that we did is, what are the metrics by which you measure yourself? Now you have the charge from the larger organization, which is the DC Department of Healthcare Finance. You have the charge from there for what you're supposed to be doing and organizations that you're supposed to be working with. But by what do you measure yourself? Okay, so there cannot be any accountability if you have no standards. You have to have standards. So these are some of the things that you can quickly put in place to help your team improve its capability. I would tell you that this is a big one, and we will get to the root cause of a lot of team issues in a little bit. But avoidance of accountability is very, very, very a big part of why nothing moves in a team. The next one is a lack of commitment. This, I think, hits right to the core reason, as our poll said, why a lot of you here in the webinar today is saying that your team is not successful because of a lack of common purpose. So a lack of commitment happens when there is ambiguity on what you should be focusing on as a team. Again, one of the things that I say a lot of times when I work with leaders or managers is, you can do 10 things okay, you can do 5 things very well, you can do 3 or 2 things excellently. So a lack of commitment or lack of common purpose or ambiguity occurs when everything is urgent and everything is important. If everything is important, then nothing is important. So that people cannot, it's hard for you to get people to commit to 20 different things. But if you have clear, 3 very clear goals, and there's no ambiguity, then you can increase the commitment level of your team. So that's the lack of commitment is another big one that causes teams to go into dysfunction. And we're going to go into how all these are related once we have all of them on there. But I just wanted to mention that you see that this is in the middle of the pyramid, and it's in the middle of the pyramid for a reason, because that's what really holds the team together, is this commitment, the cohesiveness, cohersing around a common goal, cohersing around the specific objectives that your team is designed to accomplish. And then we're getting close to the heart of the matter when it comes to dysfunctions of the team. This one right here, fear of conflict. So when I do team coaching, I see this a lot in meetings. So one of the things I do when I'm coaching teams is I observe their team meetings, their standard team meetings. So a lot of teams is weekly, some is bi-weekly. And I observe the team meetings, and I realize that the team meetings are very mundane, very checklist type things, very tactical, about updates, and everybody's giving updates. Really don't see a lot of what I like to call battle of ideas. okay, not just this is what I'm doing, but uh, how are we supposed to be doing what we're doing? What is our focus? Where are we doing good? Where do we need to make changes as a team? Why are we not meeting the standards that we've set for ourselves? Why are we not winning? What are the issues? Those conversations are not had because of fear of conflict. And those are the very conversations that need to be had to drive the team to success. So, fear of conflict is basically people don't want to step on each other's toes. People don't want to invest the emotional capital, what I like to call emotional capital, to really have a true battle of ideas and have a true dialogue of not just what the team should be doing, but how the team should be doing it. And then if accountability is an issue, or calling people out if they're not pulling their weight, that people are afraid to do that. So fear of conflict, and a big part of the fear of conflict is because in the workplace we have kind of defined conflict as a negative thing. So conflict is bad, conflict is good. So we kind of perpetrate this sense of artificial harmony. Like no news is good news. If we can get through the staff meeting without people yelling at each other, then the team is doing fine. But there are a lot of things that are left unsaid. There are ideas that are not brought on the table. There are questions that are not asked because of the fear of conflict that can generate something really great out of the team. Okay. And the bottom line of why all of these things happen within a team is the absence of trust. And I know that sometimes when we talk about things like trust, and we talk about oh, so my slide went off for some reason. Sorry about that. I just says people can see your screen. Can you see the screen now? Please let me know if you can see it. Oh, it says still quick poll results. Okay. Let me see something real quick. Manage poll, bring up 4 sites of manage poll. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen now? It's up now. Okay, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so this is the pyramid that I was talking about. And I apologize. What I was doing was kind of building it up. Let me see if I can just go back and kind of scroll. So I started with inattention to results, and it shows up as status and ego. Then I went to avoidance of accountability, which is low standards or not having any standards at all. So if there are no standards, then you don't know what to hold anyone accountable for. And then we talked about lack of commitment, which is a team responsible for 20 different things. And so then there's ambiguity as to what is important because everything is important. And so there's no commitment. I talked about having fewer objectives and really honing in on the things that are important. And then fear of conflict. This is where I talked about when I observe teams, one of the things I observe during team meetings is a lot of times people are not speaking up, is very tactical, very giving quick feedback on what each person is working on. There's really no battle of ideas, like I like to say. And that kind of sells the team short because there are a lot of resources in your team. There's a lot of knowledge, experience, background that is not being leveraged because there's fear of conflict. People are not speaking up. People are not asking questions. People are not putting the ideas on the table because they're afraid of conflict. And I talked about how conflict has been branded to be a negative thing in the workplace. And so people shy away from it. And so there's this artificial harmony where we're playing nice and we say, well, the meeting was successful because nobody yelled at each other. But really, it wasn't successful because it was just a basically status of what everybody's doing, and there was no new idea formed. There was no progress on an issue. There was no decision made. There was no change of strategy for something that was not working because nobody challenged it and say, hey, we've been doing the same thing for a month or a couple of months now. We haven't seen the results that we want to see. Should we still do this or should we make a change? Put that on the table, have a battle, and then make a decision about what should be done next. So that's what fear of conflict is about. And the last thing I was going to is absence of trust. This is the bottom line of every team. Without trust, you cannot have a team. And actually, you do not have a team without trust. You may have a bunch of different people working on separate different things, but to have a team where you have one focus, one particular result. So the focus, the results is a very high level common purpose. And then the goals are specifically what you're trying to achieve. The objectives are how you're trying to achieve that. You can't do it without trust. And the way to build trust is to be vulnerable. And when we talk about this in the workplace, we talk about things like trust and vulnerability in the workplace. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm not into this mushy stuff. It's not really relevant. Let's get about the business of doing the work. But really, we at the end of the day, we're human beings. And a lot of the way that we execute our skills, our talent, our ability is through our behavior. And we have to work with people. And the absence of trust is a big one, because if there's no vulnerability in the team, and when we say vulnerability, what are we talking about? Is being open, being willing to be wrong, feeling safe that if you make a mistake, your head is not going to be chopped off, feeling confident that your teammates have your back, trusting that if you collaborate with a team member and put your ideas out there, they're not going to steal your ideas and make it their own and take the credit for it. All of those things have to do with trust, and trust is built over time in a team. So without trust, you're not going to be able to put those ideas on the table or ask the questions, because there's going to be fear of conflict. And if there is no real ideas coming up and there is no battle of ideas, then you can't get to what you're committing to as a team. And if you can't get to what you're committing as a team, you don't have your clear objectives, you don't have the top things you're focusing on per time period, then you can't hold anybody accountable because you don't have a standard. I put there low standards. I really should say no standards, because a lot of times nobody knows where the floor is in their team outputs and where the ceiling is. So what's okay, what's good, what's great, and what's outstanding? Those standards cannot be developed if you don't have a clear purpose, if you have ambiguity. And then the top of the apex is you will not achieve results without without measuring your success, without having accountability, without looking at those standards. So a couple of things that we can do in terms of building trust in teams is we do different exercises. One of the quick exercises you can do, and I'll encourage you to look at this in your next team meeting, is when you set your meeting agenda, a lot of times we set agendas, try to make your agenda as simple as possible. So a lot of times we'll go into a team situation and the agenda is like a full page with like 25 different bullet points. There is no room there to give space for some of the connection that happens within a team that builds trust to happen. Okay, so I said I'll give you a quick exercise. So one of the exercises that we do is at the start of a team meeting, you can say something to your team members, a quick exercise. Name 3 things about yourself that you think nobody knows on your team. Very quick exercise. We did this one time with our clients. It was really, really interesting. I mean, we found out that one of the team members had played competitive volleyball. Her husband was a coach, and then another team member's relative had been part of the husband's team, soccer team. I can't remember what particular sport, soccer team way back in the days. So they had connections that they didn't know that they had that helped to build trust, because there was never that opportunity to do that. So that's a quick exercise. There's so many other team exercises that we do. I mean, We, in terms of team building or team coaching, we do a whole day. We also do like a 2 or 3 day offsite. So there's so many things that you can do. But these quick nuggets, think about how they apply in your organization and within your team, and think about what you can do in terms of the information and nuggets that you've had right now to be able to make some changes within your team. I'm going to break right now for questions. I do want to hear from you. I'm sorry we lost a little bit of time because of the screen issue, but this is the end of my slide presentation, so I do want to take questions. Our contact information is on here. I want to hear from you. Please send me your questions. What's your experience with team in terms of common purpose? Does anybody want to share where they think the accountability lies in terms of common purpose? I want somebody to post about that and share, and I can share my thoughts on where I think the common purpose lies. So somebody says, I think the responsibility lies on the leader. Yes, and it lies on the team. And this is interesting because if you're a team, that's one of the things, one of the components of a team is that if you're truly a team, the responsibility and accountability lies on everybody, because that's what a team is. You can't break apart a team. It's a whole unit. So when it comes to getting that common purpose, the accountability is on all members of the team. If the leader, I think the leader's job is basically to communicate that common purpose and make it clear and remove ambiguity. But in coming up with the common purpose, that is a responsibility of all the teaming members, and that's something that you can achieve through an offsite, or even a series of workshops to say, okay, what is our common purpose? Let's lay that on the table. What does everybody think should be our common purpose? And then have a discussion about it, have a battle of ideas about it, and then come to consensus about it. Any other questions? All right, looks like we don't have any more questions. I'm just going to take a look one more time. We have no more questions. I want to thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. Please stay in touch with us. We have another webinar coming up in 2 weeks, and that's going to be, I believe, it's going to be on conflict resolution. I'm not sure, but Erica, if you could post what that webinar is on. And we're always looking to interact with you through our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you think of any other questions, or if you need assistance with your team, feel free to send me an email, info@ama-consult.com. And thank you so much, and have a great day.